This is long overdue. I'm so excited to actually be here to record this. I pushed past the imposter syndrome. I've been thinking about this for years, and I'm here recording the very first episode of Neurodiversity Support Podcast. I'm Anika. I'm a neurodivergent in South Africa, and I'm also a neurodiversity specialist. Now, I'm just going to say off the cuff, this is like my 87th time trying to record this. Because of my neurodiversity, I am firstly trying to make it perfect, which is impossible because of the second reason, which is I'm neurodivergent, so my brain and my mouth are not best friends, and my brain's working too fast and my mouth can't keep up, so there's lots of boo-boos. And honestly, I'm just going to push past the boo-boos and I'm going to carry on recording, and yeah, fair warning, that's going to happen. Okay, so let's continue. If I was going to ask you what is neurodiversity and you weren't sure, what's the first thing that you're going to do? Got Google out, and you Google what is neurodiversity. Most probably the search is going to come up with something along the lines of neurodiversity has to do with the different ways in which people's brains function. It may even give you a few examples like ADHD, autism, Tourette's, dyscalculia, maybe even talk about dyslexia. There's many, many more than that. And although that's not incorrect, the problem that we're finding is that as a South African Googling that, the results are mostly from American sources or even from the UK. I mean, in Google, and you can go right to the bottom and then you can go to like the second page of the search and the third page. You're still going to struggle, and I'm talking about struggle, to find a result that comes from an actual neurodivergence narrative. Like I'm talking about some ADHD housewife that wants to write a blog about baking with ADHD. You don't find that within a South African context, which means that the neurodivergent narrative within South Africa is mostly silent. And that's what this podcast is for. This podcast aims to be a place where South African neurodivergence narratives and voices can be heard. You know, to me personally, neurodiversity is simply a word that's trying to encapsulate or to explain millions of people's unique stories. And that's what this place is for, to try and share those stories one at a time. You know, for me personally, I'm a neurodivergent. I said that I think 30 times already. But bear with me on this analogy. I don't know why I keep on using it, because I don't drink, so I try and kind of botch the analogy a little bit, but just hold fast to the main point of it. I always describe neurodiversity of people as a cocktail, because you may have a main ingredient. So for me, my main ingredient is ADHD, right? But then I've got like a little bit of dyslexia added in me, and a little bit of sensory processing disorder, and a little bit of anxiety, and all those together make up my signature neurodiversity cocktail, which means that my experiences in life in the different environments that I find myself is going to be unique because of my signature cocktail. And your neurodiversity cocktail is going to be different and will be your signature cocktail. I mean, just every one of you can go at home and just pencil what you think your ingredients of your signature cocktail is, because that's what makes your story so unique. And I would love to hear every single one of your neurodiversity signature cocktail stories within the South African context, because it's important. It really is important. What does some dude in Texas know about trying to do a project and then load shedding hits? I mean, motivation with load shedding is like, he doesn't understand. He won't even know, probably won't know what we're even talking about. So the narratives are so important. Sharing resources, normalizing dialogue, and helping one another to feel just a little bit less alone within this neurodiversity in South Africa, because the community for most part doesn't exist, which leaves a lot of neurodivergents feeling mostly uncertain and alone in their journey. I really feel like if you ask the average person on the road, bro, what's neurodiversity? Chances are that they're most probably not going to know if they don't have somebody that they love being neurodivergent, because in South Africa, it's not the norm standard to give that type of accommodation or that kind of understanding. I grew up with a mother and I love her so much. This is not a dig at my mom, but she was the kind of mom that was like, if it's not bleeding, it's not hurt. Like, there's no blood, carry on playing. You cool, you fine. So internal wounds was not a thing. So neurodiversity was not a thing. Go on and carry on. So, and that was done with love. It wasn't because she was a negligent, terrible mom. But that is the narratives of a lot of neurodivergents these days, is that there was no external blood, so something that you imagine to be in your mind is clearly not there. And when a lot of the neurodivergents now are like, well, bro, I actually did have like X, Y, and Z problem. Had I had help, I would have smashed my matric. Does that dialogue feel familiar to you? I hear so many people say that if I had the help that I needed, I would have been able to do so much better. I would be able to study this and that and that. And those are the narratives that we want to talk about, the good and the bad, so that we can help to feel less alone and help to prevent that from happening in the future. So I personally feel that having that kind of dialogue, that open dialogue, will not only allow us to understand ourselves better and feel a sense of connection between us, but will also allow our spouses to understand us. See, oh, okay, they're speaking about this on the podcast. She's probably not lying when she says she experiences this, or our children to understand what they're going through, or our brothers or sisters or our friends or even our colleagues. There's so many rights that neurodivergents have that they're not even aware of. I mean, to be accommodated within the workplace is a human right. You would accommodate somebody that is physically disabled to have access to a wheelchair, so why not those that are mentally disabled that have neurodiversity, And that's why this podcast is so important, to help us, to empower us, to understand ourselves and our needs, so that we can stand up and say, whoa, this is what I need to help me to be the best that I can be, and I expect you to respect that and give that to me. Today, funny enough, the mainstream dialogue or understanding of neurodiversity is so warped. And I mean, we're supposed to be in the information era, but there's hardly any information, because today, bless her heart, I'm not speaking poorly of her, but I went to a dietitian today because I am not on meds. I'm not really a fan of meds, but that's me. So I wanted her to help me to have a diet that would help to level my hormonal input, so that I don't have any spikes or dips of dopamine. And I told her that I want to control that with my diet because I have ADHD. And the first thing she says to me is, oh, ADHD, so you can't sit still. I'm like, girl, no, that's not what my ADHD, no. And that kind of like silly information or silly perspective or slurs against neurodiversity kind of digs at me a little bit, or gets under my skin, because neurodivergents are seen as like the boo-boos of society, when the neurotypicals don't even realize how powerful and amazing we actually are, and like how miraculous our brains are to think and process differently to the neurotypicals. I mean, obviously that's better. I don't know. So that type of dialogue is important for me to change within ourselves, because if we grew up in there's no blood, so there's no ANA kind of society, we have been brought up, unfortunately, with a societal level of gaslighting where we've internalized, where we ourselves think we are silly and we're catching our answers and we're just imagining it, and we're not going to fight for our needs because there's no blood, so there's no ANA, and that type of Empowering is what we need for neurodivergence in South Africa to understand our needs, fight for our needs, fight for inclusion, and be an equal member of society, even within our mind, so that we psychologically set free, so that we can understand our worth and how powerful we actually are together. So this, I say so a lot. I didn't realize I say so this much until I started recording this, I must be honest. But what I want to say is we have created a community on Facebook called Neurodiversity Support Group. And it is a Facebook group where members of the group are able to voice their questions there and share their stories, and in so doing, other neurodivergents can help them to overcome their challenges, or just give them a little tap on the back, a little drukkie, cyber drukkie. And the neurodiversity specialists that work for neurodiversity support also give their advice and they what's the word I'm looking for? It's okay. Give their opinion on what is being said. And we would like to use that platform to then also say, if you would like to share your story on the podcast, to say, oh, I'm going through matric now. I just got diagnosed with X, Y, and Z. This is how I overcame it. Or, I'm a 65-year-old man that just got diagnosed now, and this is the things that I see I could have fixed when I was younger, or anything like that. You can say, I'd love to share my story. I think people need to hear this. I'm a mum that took my children off heavy metal diet, and it's made huge improvements for the autism or for the ADHD or whatever the case may be. Or I'd like to find out about how to handle my child's meltdowns. Then we can get our specialists that we are associated with or that work for the neurodiversity support practice to give you that information, to have a platform where information is freely given for neurodivergence in South Africa, so that we can have that community of shared information and support, so that we can flourish as neurodivergence in South Africa. So join that community, Neurodiversity Support Group on Facebook. Ask your questions, share your information, share your experiences, so that we can join together as neurodivergents in South Africa, have our voices heard, and say, here we are equal, we are amazing, and we're here to stay. And we would like you to respect that, please, neurotypicals. Okay. So if that's something that you're keen for, I'll see you here next week, so that we can start having our voices heard, our understanding of neurodiversity heard, and the specialists of South Africa also heard. I'll see you here next week. Have a lekker day.